What happens when a Hollywood star clashes with a provocative talk show host in front of millions? This moment on The View became legendary, and what happened next shocked everyone. Sunny Hostin, known for her principled stance and sharp intellect, came to the show to promote her new book but found herself in a fiery confrontation with Joy Behar, whose sarcasm and pointed questions turned the interview into a battle of wills. This story is about respect, dignity, and the boundaries that should never be crossed. The View studio buzzed with anticipation. Bright spotlights bathed the stage in warm light, and the audience, a mix of tourists, show fans, and curious onlookers, chattered as they took their seats. A large digital clock on the wall counted down the seconds to the live broadcast. Camera operators checked their equipment, producers frantically reviewed the script, and the green rooms hummed with last-minute preparations. On the table in front of the hosts, Joy Behar, Whoopi Goldberg, Sarah Haynes, and Meghan McCain sat branded mugs, while the air carried the scent of coffee and hairspray. Sunny Hostin entered the studio to thunderous applause. Her navy blue suit perfectly accentuated her confidence, and her warm smile won over the crowd. She waved to the audience and took her seat at the round table, where the hosts awaited. Sunny was there to discuss her new memoir, Justice in the Heart, a candid account of her journey from the daughter of immigrants to a renowned lawyer, television personality, and author. The title promised an honest story about fighting for justice and embracing her identity. The audience buzzed with excitement, and social media was already exploding with the hashtag #SunnyHostinBook. Joy Behar, as always, sat at the head of the table, her eyes glinting with a mischievous spark. She adjusted her brightly framed glasses and glanced at Sunny, as if sizing her up for a challenge. Whoopi Goldberg, with her characteristic calm confidence, greeted Sunny with a slight nod. Sarah Haynes smiled, trying to lighten the mood, while Meghan McCain looked slightly tense, perhaps sensing that today's show wouldn't be ordinary. "Welcome, Sunny," Whoopi began, her voice warm but cautious. "Your book is already causing a stir online. Tell us, what inspired you to write it?" Sunny responded with enthusiasm, sharing stories about her family, her fight for justice, and the challenges faced by women of color in America. The audience listened raptly, applauding after every sentence. But in Joy Behar's eyes, something shifted, causing the producers in the control room to perk up. She leaned forward, her smile sharpening. Nobody was prepared for what happened next. Tabloids would later write. And they weren't wrong. After a few minutes of pleasant conversation, Joy abruptly changed her tone. She leaned back in her chair, crossed her arms, and fixed Sunny with a sarcastic look. "Sunny, you write about justice, about fighting for rights," Joy began, her voice deliberately slow, as if savoring each word. "But don't you think it's a bit hypocritical? You're sitting here in an expensive suit, on a show watched by millions, talking about struggle. Haven't you lost touch with the people you claim to fight for?" The studio fell silent. The audience, which had just been clapping, froze, as if someone had muted the room. Sarah Haynes nervously shuffled her papers, and Meghan McCain shot a quick glance at Whoopi, hoping she'd intervene. But Whoopi only raised an eyebrow, waiting for Sunny's response. Sunny Hostin didn't flinch. Her face remained calm, but a spark flashed in her eyes. She took a deep breath, as if gathering strength, and responded carefully. "Joy, I understand why you might think that," she said, her voice steady but firm. "But my book isn't about looking perfect. It's about my mistakes, my struggles, my roots. I haven't lost touch with the people I write about. I am one of them. And I'm using this platform to make sure their voices are heard." The audience erupted in applause, but Joy didn't back down. She leaned closer, her voice sharper. "Oh, please, Sunny," she said, rolling her eyes. "You call that the voice of the people? You're a TV star living in luxury. Don't you think your memoir is just another way to profit off your story while hiding behind good intentions?" The words hit like a slap. The studio grew so quiet you could hear the hum of the cameras. The operator behind the main camera nervously adjusted his headset, and the producers in the control room began whispering frantically. Sarah Haynes opened her mouth to say something but thought better of it. Whoopi Goldberg pursed her lips, her fingers tapping nervously on the table. Sunny Hostin slowly placed her hands on the table. Her fingers trembled slightly, but she held herself together. She looked directly at Joy, and something in her gaze made the audience hold their breath. Joy, Sunny said, her voice quiet but piercing. I'm proud of what I've achieved. I'm proud to sit at this table and share my story. But accusing me of hypocrisy without knowing what I've been through, that's unfair. And you know it. The audience roared with applause, but Joy pressed on. She leaned back, her smile more sarcastic than ever. Oh, Sunny, don't be so dramatic, she said, waving a hand dismissively. We're all playing this game. You don't really think your memoir will change the world, do you? It's just another book on the shelf, another victim story sold for $30. This time, the murmurs in the audience grew louder. Someone shouted, "That's too far!" Another pulled out their phone to record the moment. The producers in the control room signaled the director frantically, but the cameras kept rolling. The tension in the studio reached a boiling point. Sunny Hostin rose from her chair. Her movements were slow but deliberate, as if she'd made a decision that would change everything. The audience froze, sensing something unforgettable was about to happen. Even Joy, who rarely lost her composure, looked slightly unsettled. Joy, Sunny said, her voice trembling with restrained emotion but unwavering in strength. I came here to share my story, not to be attacked. You may not believe in the value of my work, but you have no right to belittle my intentions or my struggles. I'm not writing to make money. I'm writing to inspire. To show young girls who look like me that they can achieve more than they're told. And if you don't understand that, maybe you need to rethink why you're sitting at this table. The studio erupted in applause, loud, emotional, filled with respect. Some audience members stood, and a few even wiped away tears. Sarah Haynes smiled nervously, trying to diffuse the tension, but her words were drowned out by the noise. Whoopi Goldberg finally stepped in, raising a hand to calm the crowd. Okay, let's take a pause, Whoopi said, her voice calm but firm. Sunny, we appreciate your honesty. Joy, maybe we veered off topic a bit. But Joy didn't relent. She leaned forward, her eyes glinting with defiance. I'm just saying what people are thinking, Sunny, she said. You can pretend your book is altruism, but let's be real, you're cashing in on your story, just like the rest of us. Those words were the final straw. Sunny Hostin turned to the audience, her gaze filled with dignity. She took a deep breath and said, I won't apologize for who I am or what I do. My book isn't about money. It's about hope. About strength. About staying true to yourself, even when someone tries to tear you down. And I won't let anyone, not you, Joy, not anyone, diminish that. She turned, her heels clicking against the stage, and walked toward the exit. The studio fell into a stunned silence, broken only by the hum of cameras and the audience's whispers. The producers in the control room clutched their heads, one exclaiming, This is a viral moment! The cameras followed Sunny as she strode off stage, her head held high. As Sunny disappeared behind the curtains, the studio descended into chaos. The audience was divided, some clapped and shouted words of support, while others whispered, shocked by Joy's harshness. Whoopi Goldberg tried to steer the show back on track, but her words were lost in the noise. Sarah Haynes looked like she wanted to disappear, and Meghan McCain shook her head, muttering under her breath. On social media, the moment was already going viral. Clips of Sunny's speech spread across Twitter and TikTok with hashtags #SunnyHostin and #TheViewClash. Some users called Sunny a hero for defending her dignity, while others argued Joy was just doing her job by asking tough questions. The moment entered television history, with tabloid headlines screaming, Sunny Hostin leaves Joy Behar speechless, and The View clash, who was right? After Sunny Hostin stormed out of the View studio in the midst of a heated clash with Joy Behar, the moment went viral, sparking a firestorm of debate on social media and beyond. But the story didn't end there. Part 2 reveals what happened behind the scenes, how the conflict evolved, and the lessons learned by both participants and viewers. This episode became not just a television sensation but a catalyst for reflection on respect, responsibility, and the power of words. As Sunny Hostin disappeared backstage, the sound of her heels echoed in the stunned silence of the studio. The audience remained in shock. Some stood and applauded, while others whispered, clutching phones that had recorded the final moments of the broadcast. In the control room, producers buzzed like bees in a hive. Head producer Amelia Clark shouted into her headset, "Cut to commercial! Now!" But the cameras lingered on Sunny's empty chair, then panned to Joy Behar, who, for perhaps the first time in her career, looked shaken. Joy sat at the table, her hands nervously gripping her branded mug. Her signature sarcastic smile was gone, her eyes darting from the audience to Whoopi Goldberg, who was trying to salvage the situation. "All right, we'll be back after a short break," Whoopi said, her voice calm but strained. Sarah Haynes, still looking like she wanted to vanish, mumbled something about Sunny's amazing book, but her words were lost in the case. Meghan McCain, who rarely missed a chance to speak, simply shook her head, muttering, "That was too much." Backstage, Sunny stood near her dressing room, her hands still trembling from adrenaline. Her assistant, a young man named Trevor, hurriedly handed her a glass of water. "You were incredible, Sunny," he said, trying to comfort her. "You said what needed to be said." Sunny nodded, but her gaze was distant. She knew this moment would change everything, not just for her, but for the show, for Joy, for her book. She took a deep breath and said quietly, "I just wanted to be heard." Meanwhile, in the studio, the show resumed after the commercial break, but the atmosphere remained tense. Whoopi tried to pivot to a new topic, a political discussion about education reform, but the audience was distracted, and social media was exploding. Hashtags #Sunny walks out and #Joy Behar clash trended at the top of Twitter, and clips of Sunny's speech racked up millions of views on TikTok. Users split into two camps. Some hailed Sunny as a hero for defending her dignity, while others felt she overreacted and Joy was just doing her job. After the show, Joy Behar quickly left the studio, ignoring the glances of her colleagues and producers. In her dressing room, she tossed her glasses onto the table and let out a heavy sigh. Her assistant, Linda, knocked cautiously. "Joy, you okay?" she asked. Joy waved her off, as if swatting a fly. "It's television, Linda. People want drama, and I gave it to them," she said, but her voice betrayed uncertainty. She knew she might have crossed the line this time. The producers gathered for an emergency meeting. Amelia Clark, the head producer, looked like she hadn't slept in a week. "This is either a disaster or our best ratings in a year," she said, scrolling through social media analytics on her tablet. "But we need to figure out what's next. Is Sunny willing to come back for the next show? And what do we do with Joy?" Meanwhile, Whoopi Goldberg called Sunny. "You okay?" she asked, her voice soft but serious. Sunny replied quietly, "I'm fine, Whoopi. But I won't let myself be humiliated for ratings." Whoopi sighed. "I get it. You know, Joy, she didn't mean anything by it. It's just her style." Sunny scoffed. "Her style doesn't justify insults. I came to talk about my book, not to fight in a verbal boxing match." The next day, the producers convinced Sunny to return to the show to close the story. They promised Joy would apologize, and the episode would focus on discussing her book without provocations. Sunny agreed, but on her terms. She would speak on her own conditions. When she re-entered the View studio, the audience greeted her with a standing ovation. Her emerald green dress radiated confidence, and her gaze was even more resolute than the day before. Joy Behar sat at the table, her face unusually serious. Whoopi, Sarah, and Meghan looked cautious, as if bracing for another storm. Whoopi opened the show, addressing the audience. "Yesterday's episode was unforgettable. Today, we want to return to our conversation with Sunny Hostin about her book Justice in the Heart. But first, Joy, I believe you have something to say?" Joy cleared her throat, her hands nervously clutching her mug. "Sunny," she began, looking her in the eye, "I want to apologize. my words yesterday were too harsh. I didn't mean to diminish your work or your story. I was just doing the show. But I realize I hurt you, and I'm sorry." The audience murmured quietly, some clapping, but most waited for Sunny's response. She nodded, her face calm but her eyes reflecting restrained strength. "Thank you, Joy," Sunny said, her voice even. "I appreciate your apology. But I want everyone to understand, my book isn't just a product. It's my way of telling the world that every person deserves respect, no matter where they come from or what they've been through. And I won't let my story be used for drama." The audience erupted in applause, louder than ever. Sarah Haynes smiled, visibly relieved, and Megan McCain added, "Sunny, your strength is inspiring." Even Joy nodded, acknowledging the power of Sunny's words. The rest of the episode passed without conflict. Sunny shared stories from her book, discussing her life and answering audience questions. Her words about justice, respect, and the power of vulnerability resonated deeply, with the audience interrupting her with applause multiple times. Joy remained subdued, asking only cautious questions, while Whoopi skillfully steered the conversation to avoid further tension. When the show ended, Sunny left the studio with her head held high. On social media, she was praised for her dignity and courage, and Justice in the Heart became the #1 bestseller on Amazon that day. Joy Behar received mixed reactions. Some saw her apology as sincere, others as forced. But one thing was clear: this conflict changed the view and sparked a broader conversation about the boundaries of tough interviews.